What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're talking sleepers, specifically a sleeper at the tight end position in Greg Olsen that I think not enough people are talking about. I'll give you guys all the reasons why, but before we deep dive that, another quick reminder, if you haven't already, get yourself a copy of the 2019 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It's got everything you could want: player positional rankings, individual rankings, player bios, general fantasy advice, and more. You'll get updates leading up to your draft, so no worries there, at a great price. All the info in the description box. And now let's get into our discussion for the day. So if you guys have been keeping up with my videos up until this point, you know I've made it no secret about the success that I believe Greg Olsen can have in 2019. And I've given a few reasons here and there, but I really want to use this opportunity today to break down in depth why I believe Greg Olsen will have this type of year this season. And we'll look at the downsides, the upsides, the concerns, everything and anything. And hopefully by the end of this video, I'll have convinced at least a handful of you guys to get on board with this idea and take advantage of what could be a great opportunity, because it happens every single year. There's one of these names that we just don't talk about, especially at the tight end position, that when it's all said and done, you look at his stats and you realize, oh, he finished as a top 5 tight end. That could be Greg Olsen in 2019. Last year, it was an Eric Ebron, it was a Jared Cook. And guess what? Greg Olsen has a much better track record than both those guys. Hell, both those guys combined. For Eric Ebron, he was a forgotten name in Detroit. Then he goes to Indianapolis, kind of a perfect case scenario where Jack Doyle had to get hurt and he had to have all that touchdown success, but ultimately he was a top 5 guy. And Olsen, look, in case you guys have forgotten or just weren't aware, he did something pretty special in the NFL as far as record books at the tight end position are concerned. He was the first tight end in NFL history to post 3 1,000 plus yard seasons in a row. So that tells you that when he was healthy, he was pretty damn consistent and pretty damn lethal in that Carolina offense. Now, obviously, the big thing here is health, because with Greg Olsen, these last 2 years, in 2017 and 2018, it has been a foot injury that has prevented him from playing the majority of the season. And it has been that same foot injury both those times. Maybe that's what's the biggest concern. And look, I'll admit it, it's very possible that he can suffer the same injury again this season. But that's the beauty of this thing with Greg Olsen. He is such a forgotten name that right now you can almost get him at zero cost to you. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. But going back to the injury, I think right now Greg Olsen probably finds himself in a somewhat similar category to maybe a Devonta Freeman. Because Freeman is a guy, again, with proven production in the past, that unfortunately these last 2 seasons has been very unlucky with staying healthy. And now he has slipped into the end of the 3rd round, start of the 4th round, where we know if he stays healthy, he is a borderline top 10 running back. But that's the beauty of this thing. Devonta Freeman is going in the 3rd or 4th round, like I said. Whereas Greg Olsen, you can have him in the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th round. You know, because with Greg Olsen, once we look at his average draft position, which, you know, just right now I'll throw it out there for reference, it's right around 155th overall. Man, that screams opportunity to me. And I realize what a lot of people are going to say: why would I even take a chance on Greg Olsen? You know, he's just going to get hurt again. But I think that's just a very bad argument to make, because it happens, you know, every so often. Look, it happened with a guy in Jordan Reed at the same position last year. He had suffered kind of 2 seasons in a row where he couldn't stay healthy. We all knew the type of talent that he had, and he played the majority of the season in 2018. Now, unfortunately for him, Washington offense was an absolute mess, and I don't know if they just had a personal vendetta against Jordan Reed, but they just refused to throw him the football. But look, maybe a better example is someone like a Keenan Allen, because about 3-4 years ago, he just couldn't stay healthy. You know, he kept getting injured. He had 2 years in a row where he had season-ending injuries, And I believe it was the 2017 season, heading into the 2017 season, he was ranked as like a third round wide receiver. And if you went ahead and capitalized on that, you absolutely reaped the benefits the entirety of that year. And then guess what happened immediately the year afterwards? Well, he was a wide receiver that and went at the end of the first round and early second round. So I absolutely think we can see that bounce back healthy type of season from someone like Greg Olsen. And then all of a sudden you're going to see his ADP rocket up the season afterwards. You're going to see his rankings rocket up. And speaking of rankings, let's look at those because I've got 4 different platforms here. Fantasy Pros, he is ranked the 17th overall tight end. ESPN, 15th overall. Yahoo, 18th. NFL, 16th. So now there's not really too much difference between standard and PPR rankings, maybe a spot or two. But the reason I bring this up is because essentially what these platforms are telling you, depending obviously on the size of the league you are in, but if you're in a 10 or 12 team league, that's essentially saying that these platforms think Greg Olsen will be a backup tight end at best, someone that you get on your bench and you save for the, bye week in case there's an injury and then you plug him in. But in my own personal rankings, look, I have a big difference. Now, obviously, I'm not putting him in the category of the Travis Kelce's, the Zach Ertz's, the George Kittles. That'd be ludicrous. I realize that, Greg Olsen is up there in age, and his better years are gone, and they might have even been sapped more so due to the injury. But at the same time, I recognize opportunity. Now, I think he could absolutely belong in that tier 2 list of tight end names with the Evan Ingrams, with the OJ Howards, with the Hunter Henrys. In standard formats, I have him ranked as my 7th overall tight end. And in PPR formats is where I'm really excited about him because there I have him ranked as my 5th overall tight end. If you look at his stats in depth, which we will do here shortly, he has excelled at catching the football and being a big time target for Cam Newton. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is his average draft position, which I said before is 155th, which, again, aims to suggest you can have him if you're in a 10-team league in the 15 round and later, in the 12-team, the 12th round or later. Now, obviously, there will be some exceptions to those rules based on how certain people feel on certain players, but what I'm basically pointing out is that, man, there is some risk because there's an injury history, but the reward is just so high. And even if there's a risk, it's almost a non-existent risk here, folks. A player that you're getting in the 10th to 12th, or I should say in the 12th to the 15th round, that's the definition of getting someone that might have injury concerns or question marks, but has huge upside. And that's how you win those late rounds. So Greg Olsen should absolutely be someone that you're targeting just from that perspective alone. But let's look at these stats here a little bit more closely because, look, since 2012, I'll start with that year, Greg Olsen has seen 100 plus targets. 2012 is 104, 2013 111, then 123, then 124, then 129, and then obviously we see the dip after his injuries these last 2 years. And as far as receptions go, in 2012, 69, in 2013, 73, then 84, then 77, then 80. And again, the reason I bring this up is because obviously that he doesn't belong in the conversation of a Kelce, of an Ertz, or a Kittle, because those guys kind of exploded. Ertz and Kelce had 150 plus targets last year. But when you get into the conversation of top 5 guys, well, let's look at Eric Ebron from last year, because Eric Ebron from last year, he had 110 targets and only 66 receptions. And then Jared Cook, he had 101 targets and 68 receptions. I think both those, combination of things is something that a healthy Greg Olsen can 100% do, because he was doing it back in 2012. He was doing it no problem then, before he was one of those favorite weapons for Cam Newton. And I think as far as targets go, we'll see at least 100. It'll probably be in the low hundreds, 100 to 105. And receptions, I think we'll see between 65 and 80. That is my projection right now. And the reason I'm so confident in making that projection is because, for better or for worse, I'm very acquainted with the Carolina Panthers offense. And what I can tell you is that Greg Olsen has been an integral part of that offense for a while. He is Cam Newton's favorite target. Make no mistakes about that. He is the most experienced pass catcher. He is the pass catcher that has the best chemistry with Greg Olsen. And something that people maybe forget a little bit is, with a guy in Devin Funchess gone now, the Panthers have kind of transitioned into more of a speedy, big play offense. And I think Greg Olsen can still get down the field and get you some of those big plays. But he's also a very big body pass catcher that Cam Newton can look to in times of trouble. And Greg Olsen is a very good pass catcher on top of that. We might not talk about it, but some of those one-handed catches, obviously people are going to bring up guys like an Odell Beckham or DeAndre Hopkins, but Greg Olsen, low-key, has some very impressive one-handed catches. And the reason, again, I just bring that up because even though Cam Newton might be inaccurate and whatever it is, Greg Olsen will make the most of that opportunity, and he will maximize, more so than anyone in that offense, the ability, the chances to catch a wayward pass from Cam Newton. And honestly, if you break down those pass catchers even more, well, okay, you've got the up-and-coming DJ Moore, you've got Curtis Samuel, you've got the newly added Chris Hogan, you have got Torrey Smith. None of those guys are big targets, guys that will get volume targets and volume receptions. DJ Moore is the biggest name, the most highly drafted wide receiver right now on the Panthers, and he's going to do most of his damage on big plays. He'll get you about 60, maybe 70 receptions if you're very lucky on the season. He's not really that PPR type of guy. He relies on those big plays more so than anything. He is still, kind of figuring things out. This is only his second year, for heaven's sake, in the league and in this offense. Honestly, I think it comes down to two people here as far as the best pass catchers on this team. Either Greg Olsen or Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey, he will get his chances. He had huge numbers there last year, obviously, but again, something that I think people might forget is a big reason, maybe in part, that happened is because Cam Newton, after his shoulder injury, was limited into with the number of long balls that he could accurately throw. So guess what that meant? A lot more short dink and dumps, right around 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. Guess who was always there? Christian McCaffrey. So with a healthy Cam Newton, what I'm basically trying to say is I think a lot of those targets, a lot of those receptions will be spread out, and they could be spread out to a guy like Greg Olsen because, again, to me, not only is he the favorite target for Cam Newton, not only is he the best pass catcher for Cam Newton, he's also a huge weapon in the red zone for Cam Newton. All things that you have to absolutely love about Greg Olsen. And at the end of the day here with Olsen, he can go ahead, get hurt, get injured, but after you've spent a 12th, 13th round pick on him, it's not that big of a loss. That's the beauty of all of this. And that's what I want the takeaway message to be here. Because we've gone over his kind of projected stats for this year, and on paper, they can be as good as the Jared Cooks and the Eric Ebrons of last year, which would put him in the top 5 tight end conversation. He just has to stay healthy. But if he doesn't, you didn't spend that high of a pick on him. So, not that big of a loss. Go ahead. Maximize the potential on this guy. Let everyone else sleep on him, but don't sleep on him yourself. Get him maybe a little bit earlier on, maybe in the 10th round, 11th round, whatever it is, and get that steal, get that sleeper, and be set at the tight end position, even though you didn't get a tight end earlier on. Instead, what you did is maximize your lineup at other positions and then get a sleeper at the tight end later on, and then you were rolling for the entirety of the season and just be set. That's the beauty of it. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I know I'm going to get a lot of people that disagree with this. They just don't think Greg Olsen can stay healthy. But tell me why you think that if Greg Olsen actually plays 16 games, why he can't do what we mentioned, because I absolutely think it is in the realm of possibility. He just has to stay healthy. That's a big ask. I realize it. But Let me hear it in the comments section whether you agree, disagree, if you have any other questions. And as always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.